As I grasped the medical report tightly, I sat on the hospital bench with mixed feelings regarding the news of my pregnancy. I had clicked on Austin's phone number several times, but I didn't dare to call him. I didn't know if Austin would think I had ulterior motives and pressure me to abort the baby if I told him about my pregnancy. Just as I looked up at the gynecology department not far away and was hesitating whether to take the initiative to abort the baby, my phone suddenly rang. After staring at Austin's name on the screen, I anxiously answered the phone. Austin. Where are you? Upon hearing his question, I clutched my phone and pursed my lips. Even though I wanted to lie to him, I was too cowardly to do it. I'm at the hospital. Cregget General Hospital. Yes. Great. I want you to come to the second floor of the emergency department building now. I'll wait for you at the stairway on the second floor. Austin sounded anxious, and he hung up the phone after giving me instructions. I lowered my eyes and glanced at the medical report in my hand. Then I carefully folded it up, put it in my bag and ran toward the emergency department building on high heels. Once I arrived, I went up to the second floor. Sure enough, Austin stood at the stairway waiting for me. Truth be told, this seemed to be his first time being so punctual that in the past, he would always run extremely late when he said he would wait for me at a certain place. I recalled the longest he kept me waiting was during our movie date. As a matter of fact, he didn't show up even after the movie ended. Thus, I plucked up my courage to call him and ask him about his whereabouts. Yet, he told me he was outside drinking with his friends and forgot he had a movie date with me. Since he always stood me up, I was surprised that he actually kept his promise for once. When he saw me, he immediately grabbed my wrist and dragged me toward the emergency room without saying a word. He was very tall and walking at an urgent pace, so I couldn't keep up with his pace at all. Hence, I could only trot all the way. Because of this, I was drenched in sweat from running even though the distance from the stairway to the emergency room was only a few hundred feet. As soon as I stopped, Austin pushed me into the emergency room. "Doctor, take her blood." I looked at Austin, who was anxious. Though puzzled, I didn't dare to ask him what. I kept my head low and let the doctor take me further into the emergency room. When I entered the operating room and looked at the pale woman, who was lying on the hospital bed and receiving supplemental oxygen, I finally realized why Austin was so anxious. Austin was always so solicitous about her welfare. Even if it was in the middle of the night, he would run out in his pajamas as long as she called. As long as it was her wishes, Austin would immediately fulfill them. In fact, Austin once promised her that, except for marriage, he would make it up to her twice as much for everything else. On the other hand, I seemed to only gain the part of marrying Austin. I pursed my lips and lay down on the hospital bed beside the woman. I frowned in pain when the doctor inserted the needle into my blood vessel. Looking up at the doctor, I asked, "I haven't done a health checkup yet. Is it okay to give her my blood? Mr. Jones has shown us your medical records. Your blood type matches Miss Diaz's, and you're physically healthy. Miss Diaz's condition is especially critical this time, so she needs about 600 milliliters of blood. If there's any discomfort throughout the whole process, please bear with it for a while." 600 ml. I clenched my fists as I watched the blood flow down the tube and into the bag. Although I knew that Nicole Diaz, Austin's first love, was in a particularly critical condition, I was still generally aware that the maximum amount of blood donated each time should not exceed 400 milliliters. Now that the doctor wanted to take 600 milliliters in one go, it would definitely take a toll on my body, let alone that I was currently in the first trimester of my pregnancy. I stared at the doctor hesitantly. After a long moment of internal struggle, I parted my lips and said, "Doctor, I thought we could only donate up to 400 milliliters of blood at a time. Isn't 600 milliliters a bit?" At once, the doctor raised his hand, pushed up the glasses on his nose and interjected, "Mr. Jones had instructed us to prioritize Miss Diaz's health. Prioritize Nicole's health," I thought. Thus, I accepted my fate and transfused 600 milliliters of blood to Nicole. My whole body felt floaty and light when I got off the operating table. I propped myself up and walked to the door with the nurse's help. When I saw Austin, a lump formed in my throat. I choked up, saying, "Austin," yet Austin didn't spare me a glance and just walked up to the nurse beside me asking, "How is Nicole?" I clenched my fists. Even though I knew how important Nicole was to Austin, I still couldn't help but feel aggrieved at this moment. I had transfused 600 milliliters of blood to his first love while I was pregnant with his child. Yet, he actually ignored me. Watching Austin anxiously ask the nurse about Nicole's condition, I lowered my eyes and pursed my lips. I tried to listen to what the nurse said, but the nurse's voice seemed to be fading away. At the same time, I felt lightheaded and some pain in my chest. Suddenly, I blacked out and lost consciousness. It was already dark outside by the time I woke up. I propped myself up from the hospital bed and felt something warm flowing down my lower body. I lifted the blanket at once. Looking at the pool of blood under me, I screamed in fear. Clutching my phone, I hesitated for a long time before summoning my courage to call Austin. I was extremely flustered as I listened to the beeping sound on the phone. As I held the phone, I silently prayed over and over again that Austin would answer the phone. Still, he didn't answer even after more than a dozen phone calls. At night, the nurse came to take my temperature. I looked at the nurse and asked dolefully, "My baby?" The nurse sighed and tucked me in. "Why did you agree to transfuse so much blood when you knew you were pregnant? You were still in the first trimester. It's the period that's most prone to miscarriage. Nurse your body well and be more careful next time." Miscarried? I had miscarried? I had just found out that I was pregnant, but I had already lost the baby. In fact, it was gone before its father knew about its existence. I covered my face in agony as tears oozed through my fingers and streamed down my cheeks. Still, I figured that the baby probably knew its fate. That was why it left so decisively. Well, it was better for the baby to depart from this world on its own than for its father to force him to its death. I called Austin several more times later that night. However, he still didn't answer the phone. At dawn, I took the medicine prescribed by the doctor, put on my pajamas, and walked out of the ward. I searched from one ward to the other. After asking several nurses, I finally located Nicole's ward. While standing at the ward entrance, I looked inside through the glass window. Austin was telling Nicole a story. With his head hung low, he gently turned the pages of the book. Nicole, on the other hand, was wearing an oxygen mask and gazing lovingly at Austin. Nicole's face had become much rosier, and she was in good condition. Judging from the situation, her health should be fine now. Austin, too, looked relaxed. He probably felt at ease now. As for me, I turned around and was ready to leave. Unfortunately, my hand accidentally hit the door handle. Upon hearing the noise, Austin immediately turned his head and looked in my direction. When I met his eyes, I panicked and wanted to leave promptly. However, I couldn't move. I remained still until Austin opened the door, stood before me, and looked at me. Feeling embarrassed and awkward, I quickly lowered my head. Meanwhile, I kept blaming myself for not leaving a little faster just now. Now that Austin caught me peeping at him and Nicole, it was simply embarrassing for me to face him. Austin stared at me with a frown. Then he took out a medical report from his pocket and threw it at me. Once the report fell to the ground, I looked down and saw the words printed on it. Panicked, I abruptly looked up at him and tried to explain. He cut me off. "Lumi Thatcher, I can't believe you would abort our baby behind my back."